Jai Jai Shri Chaitanya Jai Nityananda.
Jai Jai Shri Chaitanya Jai Nityananda.
Jai Dvaita Chandra Jai Gaur Bhakta Vrinda.
Jai Dvaita Chandra Jai Gaur Bhakta Vrinda.
Jai Jai Shri Chaitanya Jai Nityananda.
Jai Jai Shri Chaitanya Jai Nityananda.
Jai Dvaita Chandra Jai Gaur Bhakta Vrinda. Jai Jai Shri Chaitanya Jai Nityananda. Jai Dvaita Chandra Jai Gaur Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare. Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare. Shri Prabhupada ki. Who will translate into French?
I can translate in French or Rohini. Rohini, tu veux traduire en français?
How many devotees need a French translation?
Qui a besoin d'une traduction en français?
Deux.
Deux.
Maybe we do simultaneously
Yeah,
in the corner, yeah?
that would be
simultaneous.
Yeah, it would be better.
All the Russian speaking devotees speak English?
They're already sitting.
Excuse me?
They already have translated.
Take a ring. Madhavendra is also here.
So Prabhu is going to
One of the competition to translate. More translators than there are. Let's be translated.
Narayanaha Tvam Na Hi Sarvadehinam Atma Asi Adhisha Akhila Loka Sakshi Narayanaha Angam Nara Bhu Jala Anya Tat Cha Api Satyam Na Tava Eva Maya Narayanastvam Nahi Sarvadehinam Narayanastvam Nahi Sarvadehinam Atmasya Shakhila Loka Sakshi Atmasya Ki Adhi Shakhila Loka Sakshi Narayanangam Narabhujalanyat Narayanangam Narabhujalanyat Tachapi Satyam Nahi Natavaiva Mayam Tachapi Satyam Natavaiva Mayam Narayanastvam Nahi Sarvadehinam Atmasyadhi Shakhila Loka Sakshi Narayanangam Narabhujalanyat Tachapi Satyam Natavaiva Mayam
Narayanastam nahi sarvadehinam.
Narayanastam nahi sarvadehinam.
Atmasya kila loka sakshi.
Atmasya disha kila loka sakshi.
Narayanangam narabhujalayanat.
Narayanangam narabhujalayanat.
Shaki satyam nat tataiva tavaiva maya.
Shati satyam natavaiva maya. Mataji.
Narayanasvam nahi sarvadehinam. Atmasya disha kila loka sakshi. Narayanam kam narabhutalayanat. Takshati satyam natavaiva maya.
Narayanaha, Lord Narayana, Tvam, you, not, he, certainly, Sarva, all, Dehinam, of the embodied beings, Atma, the super soul. Asi, you are. Adhisha, O Lord. Akila Loka, of all the worlds. Sakshi, the witness. Narayanaha, known as Narayana. Angam, plenary portion. Nara, of Nara. Bhu, born. Jala, in the water. Anyat, due to the place of refuge. That, tat, that. Cha, and. Api, certainly. Satyam, highest truth. Na, not. Tava, your. Eva, at all. Maya, the illusory energy. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. O Lord of Lords, you are the seer of all creation. You are indeed everyone's dearest life. You are not therefore my father Narayana. Are you not therefore my father Narayana? Narayana refers to one whose abode is in the water, born of Nara. And that Narayana is your plenary portion. All your plenary portions are transcendental, they are absolute, and are not creation of Maya. Purport. This statement, which is from Srimad Bhagavatam 10:14-14, was spoken by Lord Brahma in his prayers to Lord Krishna after the Lord defeated him by displaying his mystic powers. Brahma had tried to test Lord Krishna to see if he were really the Supreme Personality of Godhead playing as a cowherd boy. Brahma stole all the other boys and their cows from the pasturing grounds, but when he returned to the pastures, he saw that all the boys and cows were still there, for Lord Krishna had created them all again. Then Brahma saw this mystic power of Lord Krishna he admitted defeat and offered prayers to the Lord, addressing him as the proprietor and seer of everything in the creation, and as the super soul who is within each and every living entity and is dear to all. That Lord Krishna is Narayana, the father of Brahma, because Lord Krishna's plenary expansion, Garbhodakashaya Vishnu, after placing himself in the Garbha ocean, created Brahma from his own body. Mahavishnu is the causal ocean, and Kshirodakashaya Vishnu in the causal ocean. And Kshirodakashaya Vishnu, the super soul in everyone's heart, are also transcendental expansions of the supreme truths. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Narayanastvam nahi sarvadehinam atmasya adhisha kila loka sakshi narayanangam narabhu jalanyat jalayanat tatchapi satyam na tavaiva mayam. O Lord of Lords, you are the seer of all creation. You are indeed everyone's dearest life. You are not therefore my father, are you not therefore my father Narayana? Narayana refers to one whose abode is in the water born from Nara. And that Narayana is your plenary portion. All your plenary portion are transcendental. They are absolute and are not creations of Maya. Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prestaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Niti Namine Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine Vanchakalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhyeva cha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Antah pravishya mama vacham imam prasuptam sanjivayata kila shakti darah svadhamna anyamscha hasta charana shravanat vagadim pranannamo bhagavate purushaya tubhyam svasyastu vishwasya kalah prasidatam dayantu bhutani shivam mithodhiya manascha badram bhajatata doksha jayaveshyatam naumatirabhyaharitu. Hare Krishna. So Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami, he is laying the foundation for the whole Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita. The whole idea of this book is to explain the teachings of Lord Chaitanya through the media of his life, because he is the living manifestation of his own teachings. And of course, his teachings are very special and peculiar, which are distinct from other Vaishnava teachings. At the time of Lord Chaitanya, there were many Bhakti movements. Bhakti was not new, and there was a renaissance of Bhakti in India at that time. As much as in the West, there was a renaissance of ancient Greek ideas. In India, there was a huge renaissance of Bhakti. There were so many different bhakti movements. But even among these different bhakti movements, Lord Chaitanya is very distinct. And of course, the main distinction, according to our philosophy and our understanding, is that Lord Chaitanya is not a great bhakta, although he plays the role of a great bhakta. He is the Lord himself, who is showing others what does it mean to be a bhakta. He is giving this example. And Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami, he wants to show this, and he lays the foundation for this, and for that he needs to establish very firmly that the philosophy, the Siddhanta, that Lord Chaitanya is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So this particular chapter of Adi Lila is establishing this fact, giving the understanding that any other manifestations of the Supreme Lord are actually some derivation from the original Supreme Lord, who is Lord Krishna or Lord Chaitanya himself. And in this particular chapter, of course, Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami is showing and proving that Lord Chaitanya is not different from Lord Krishna. But the very particular feature of our sampradaya is that Krishna, according to the philosophy of Lord Chaitanya, which is the highest pinnacle of any Vedic philosophy or any interpretation of Vedic texts, is the original source of all other avatars. That puts us completely in a different box, whereas everyone else says, yes, Krishna is a manifestation of Lord Narayana. And we say completely 180 degrees around, Krishna is not the manifestation of Lord Narayana. Lord Narayana is the manifestation of Krishna. Yes, they are not different, but still Lord Krishna is original and Lord Narayana is his partial manifestation, as it is very clearly said in this verse, where Lord Brahma himself says, Narayana angam. Narayana is your part, is the limb, whereas you are Angi, you are the whole, and Narayana is just a little part of it. So this is a very interesting and important statement, which is taken from somewhat controversial part of Srimad Bhagavatam. All the Vaishnava acharyas unanimously admit the authority of Srimad Bhagavatam as the highest praman, or Madhvacharya, he didn't comment on any other Purana, but he commented on Srimad Bhagavatam. In fact, Srimad Bhagavatam has literally, there are 87 existing commentaries, ancient commentaries on Srimad Bhagavatam. And there were so many others. Srila Jiva Goswami lists the name of commentaries which are not existent in this time. So people from time immemorial, basically, they were commenting on Srimad Bhagavatam because it's such an important pramana. Whereas among other Puranas, only Vishnu Purana has 2 commentaries. And that's it. Whereas Srimad Bhagavatam has literally hundreds of commentaries, which proves how important this book is, how important philosophically this book is. And of course, Madhvacharya, he gives this quote from Garuda Purana, which unfortunately doesn't exist in the present versions of Garuda Purana, that this is the essence of Srimad Bhagavatam, this is the commentary on Vedanta Sutra, and the explanation of Brahma Gayatri. Basically, the whole essence of Vedic literature is here. But as far as the 3 chapters, 12th, 13th, and 14th of the 10th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, there is certain dispute among Vaishnava Sampradayas. Not everyone accepts these chapters. Some acharyas think that these 3 chapters are interpolation. Like, for example, Madhvacharya, there is a famous story in his life when he determined which version of Srimad Bhagavatam is authoritative. And while determining the version of Srimad Bhagavatam which is authoritative, he has chosen the version which does not include these 3 chapters. And there is a long dispute whether these 3 chapters are interpolation or not. But of course, to us it's not a problem. Like, once we were speaking with one simple, innocent sannyasi in ISKCON, and I mentioned to him that not everyone accepts this chapter. He said, he very innocently asked me, why? Such nice chapters. I like this argument. There are so many nice pramanas there. But again, for us, it's clear because we are following Sridhar Swami, who is at this moment, Madhvacharya's commentary is actually more ancient. It's older than Sridhar Swami. But otherwise, Sridhar Swami commentary on Srimad Bhagavatam, gloss on Srimad Bhagavatam, is the oldest one. And his version is this, and we follow his version. Still, it's not the time to give the detailed argument why we think that this is not a later interpolation. And simple fact is that there are 335 chapters in Srimad Bhagavatam. If you miss this 3, it would be 332, whereas it is said that there are 335, and then, of course, 18,000 verses. If 3 chapters were not there, there would be couple hundred verses less. But anyway, putting aside this, for us, it's very important to have these chapters because these chapters exactly prove this peculiar point of our sampradaya that Krishna is the supreme, not Narayan. This is proven by the prayers of Lord Brahma, and this is actually the core verse of his prayers. This verse is extremely important because it's the whole axis of his prayers, but it's also proven by his own experience. What is the most important is that before speaking these verses, he experienced the essence of these verses by seeing that all the different Narayanas are coming out from the body of Krishna. Not just one, like Srila Jiva Goswami explains that anyone can show universal form. I mean, anyone, not you. Anyone means any incarnation of Krishna, any incarnation of Narayan can show universal form. That's not a big deal. If we say that Krishna showed universal form, no, that's not a big deal. This is nothing special, but not anyone can show or can manifest, unlimited forms of Narayana, each of whom contains the universal form. The very specific universal form which was shown to Lord Brahma was that it was not just one universal form, it was the multiple universal forms, because out of the body of Krishna, little cowherd boy in Vrindavan, so many Narayanas emanated, four-handed Narayanas, and all the material elements, the time, and all the energies, they were praying, and Shiva and Brahma, they were praying to each particular Narayana. So it was not just a universal form, it was a super universal form. It was Maha universal form, which was displayed by a little cowherd boy who was like very innocently keeping some rice, yogurt rice and pickles in his left hand, and looking at Lord Brahma. And Lord Brahma, his forehead started reeling. And after that, after seeing this, after being the witness of this unbelievable greatness, he saw himself as the tiniest little speck. And here is Lord Krishna. He bowed down to him. He fell flat in front of Lord Krishna. And Srila Jiva Goswami somewhat humorously describes this moment. He says that Lord Brahma wanted to be completely humble, but because he has four heads, one head was always up. He was trying to put all the heads down, but one head was always up. So he was somewhat confused, but ultimately he just gave up, and he just stood and started praying to Lord Krishna, admitting that his attempt to test him was futile. Actually, it was not futile, because originally it is explained by Shukadeva Goswami himself. And that's the reason sometimes ISKCON devotees, they say that Madhva followers, they don't accept these chapters because they show the mistake of Lord Brahma. It's actually a mistake of ISKCON devotees. Madhva followers, they do accept so many other faults in our founder Acharya, like in the third canto when Lord Brahma was chasing his own daughter and so on and so forth. It's not a problem for them to admit this. It's much more problematic for them to admit this whole Aghasura story. because they're followers of Lord Brahma, and Lord Brahma was completely bewildered how this manifestation, living manifestation, representation of sins, Aghasura literally means he is the sin personified, how he was delivered by Lord Krishna. How dared he deliver this sinful wretch who wanted to kill him? So, and it is said in this story that bewilderment of Lord Brahma was because of this. He couldn't figure out how was it. First of all, how he liberated Aghasura, and then how he displayed that everyone saw this Atma. Nobody sees Atma normally. Lord Brahma doesn't see Atma. Atma, the soul, is not visible. But at that particular story, at that particular moment, everyone saw Aghasura's Atma. That Atma was completely pure, effulgent, emanating strong light, and then entering the body of Krishna. So Lord Brahma was really impressed. But he wanted to be even more impressed. And that's the reason why he performed this next Lila. He thought, let's see what he will do when I will steal his friends. And of course, Krishna, He said, no problem, I have so many Narayanas in me. Let them become my friends. And let them become the calves in Vrindavana, because, what are these puffed up Narayanas? Calves in Vrindavana are much more dear to me than anything else. So, during this prayers, when Lord Brahma was praying, he's saying here, in the previous prayer, previous verse to this particular prayer, Lord Brahma says, he's very, very apologetic. He's afraid. He's obviously a little nervous. And, and then, of course, he says, ultimately, I am a little child. And you're my father, so please be merciful to me. Don't punish me too severely. I'm, after all, your little offspring. So in the previous verse, he says, Narayana is laying down on the water of Garbhadaka, Garbha Udaka. Udaka means water, and the water of Garbha. And then the lotus sprouts out from his navel, and then Lord Brahma appears on the, and that's me, and you happen to be my father and my mother. As my father, you may punish me, but as my mother, you should forgive me. So he's basically laying quite strong foundation for being forgiven. That's the essence of his prayers. But then, while saying this, he says, no. He's really uncertain and unsure. He said, you are Garbhadakashaya Vishnu, and then say, what am I saying? Am I a fool? He is not Garbhadakashaya Vishnu. He is the source of Garbhadakashaya Vishnu. He is much greater than Garbhadakashaya Vishnu. Just now, he showed to me that so many Vishnus came out from him. Not Garbhadakashaya Vishnu, Mahavishnus, Karanadakashaya Vishnus came out from his body. And am I offending him? So here, it's his little clumsy attempt to beg forgiveness for the previous offense when he kind of diminished the position of Lord Krishna by equating him with Garbhadakashaya Vishnu. Here he says, no. He kind of, sometimes when we make some mistake, we realize that this is a mistake, but then we kind of repeat the same, saying, kind of justifying that this was not a mistake, I didn't make a mistake. So he says, Narayana stvam nahi sarvadehinam. Aren't you Narayana? He said, in the previous verse, he said Narayana, and here he wants to prove his point that you are indeed Narayana because you are original Narayana. You are the source of Narayana. So he kind of little clumsy says, aren't you Narayana? By asking these rhetorical questions. Narayana stvam nahi sarva dehinam atma asi adhisha akila loka sakshi. Narayana anga. So very interestingly he says here that you're Narayan because you are Sarvadehinam Atma. It basically, there are three Narayanas, as we know, three Purushas, and one is Karandakashaya Vishnu, Mahavishnu, and then Garbhadakashaya Vishnu, the Vishnu who is laying in the universe, and then there is Kshiradakashaya Vishnu, who is the super soul, who is reflected in everyone's heart as the super soul, as Paramatma. And first he says, yes, you are definitely Narayana because you are Sarvadehinam Atma. You are Paramatma in the heart of every living entity. And then he says, Akhila Loka Sakshi, you are Akhila Loka Sakshi, you are the observer of all the planetary system. It means that you are Garbhodakashaya Vishnu. First he establishes you are Kshirodakashaya Vishnu because you are in the heart of every living entity, you are witness in their heart, Sarvadehinam Atma. You are Paramatma in everyone's heart. Then you are Akhila Loka Sakshi, you are Garbhodakashaya Vishnu. You are, he's upgrading the position of Krishna. You are the ruler of all the planetary system, Akhila Loka Sakshi. And then you are Narayana. Why? Because Nara Bhu Jala Anyat. Because from your body this water of Karanadaka ocean are coming. The water of the causal ocean is coming from your body. So basically he says that you are this three Purushas, three Narayanas, and actually all these three Narayanas your Anga. So in this way he's begging forgiveness. Your very clearly he says they're all your Angas, they're all your little parts. And of course this is a very important point because again, as I said, in Madhva Sampradaya they respect Krishna. Their main deity is Udupi Krishna, who is standing there with churning rod and with little stick. He is definitely Krishna from Vrindavan. But they say, yeah, this is Krishna, but the original God is Narayana. And of course, Sri Sampradaya, there is no question of anyone else being the original God. If you go to Sri Rangam temple, which is the main temple for Sri Sampradaya, you will very clearly see who is the main boss there. You know, huge Murti of Narayana is laying down in the Sanctum Sanctorium, and every morning the elephant is coming, and the little cow is coming, and they're bringing water. And then there are so many different temples, Narasimha temple in the compound, and Matsya temple, and Hayagriva temple, and Varaha temple, and Krishna is also there. Radha Krishna, the little temple, tiny in a remote corner of the whole compound near a pond. Krishna is standing there, and he's near the pond where Ramanujacharya liberated the fishes from this pond, but that's a different story. So Krishna is there, but very peculiarly, it's interesting, even though Krishna is given not a very prominent position in the whole Sri Rangam temple, and Ranganath, who is laying on the Ananta Shesh, is there, Karandakashaya Vishnu or Garbhodakashaya Vishnu, I don't know exactly what is their concept. But within the Sanctum Sanctorium of Sri Rangam temple, on the place where Sri Ranganath is laying, there is only description of all Krishna's pastimes. This huge Vishnu is laying there. And I asked, why it is pictures only of Krishna inside, not, if this is the Supreme Lord and he is, producing so many avatars, why not Avatar Lila is depicted there inside the Sanctum Sanctorium? And they say, oh, because it's such a nice incarnation and he likes to remember how he incarnated in Vrindavan and how he was performing these beautiful Leelas. So that was their explanation. But actually, Ranganath is meditating on Krishna. He is the object of his, Krishna is the object of his worship, of his meditation. He is laying down there in this beautiful temple, but his meditation is about Krishna because Krishna is supreme. And here, very interestingly also, Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami is explaining one principle in the beginning of this chapter. He is explaining the difference between Anubhav and Vidheya. Vidheya means predicate, and Anubhav means subject. Is explaining a very interesting principle. That's the design of this particular chapter of Chaitanya Charitamrita. He is explaining that the predicate should go after Anubhav. Anubhav is the subject, and Anubhav is something which you already experienced. Anubhav is something which is already known. And then if you want to say something new about the subject, about the Anubhav, which you already mentioned, which you already somewhat described, this is called predicate. You're adding some new information about this particular person. Like, for example, if you say, Ram is beautiful, or Ram is a poet, this sentence only makes sense for somebody who knows who is Ram, and you already know Ram, he is the subject, and it's implied that you know him, and you add some information. By the way, he is a poet. So you're adding something new to this. So basically here says what Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami says. Why does he remember this? He specifically uses these technical terms, and it's a rule in Sanskrit grammar that the subject should always precede the Anubhav. The Anubhav subject should always precede Vidheya. The predicate should always be mentioned first, because it's something known, you're adding something unknown about this. Basically, that's the argument, very important argument, why Krishna is the source of all avatars. Because this argument is employed by Srila Siddhartha Swami and Srila Jiva Goswami, who follows him in explanation of Srimad Bhagavatam. Srila Jiva Goswami gives a beautiful, brilliant explanation of this Krishna's Tu Bhagavan verse, proving very clearly that here it is, this statement, it's crystal clear. You don't even need this statement. This Krishna's Tu Bhagavan verse, if we analyze it very carefully, it will become clear that, Krishna is the source of all the incarnations, and he is even the source of Purusha. Very, very clearly. The logic of Srila Jiva Goswami is like this. He says, in the first, please listen very carefully. I know that maybe you're a little sleepy in this early hour of deprived electricity in New Mayapur Dam. But very interestingly, he says, this Krishna's tu Bhagavan, it's interesting because everyone before Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, before Gaudiya's Sampradaya, they knew this verse, they commented this verse, and even Siddhartha Swami commented of this verse, but they didn't give this verse that much importance. Whereas this verse is, according to our acharyas, is Paribhasha Sutra, which means basically the definition, the key to explain the essence of Srimad Bhagavatam. And everyone else kind of, passed by this verse, and in some explanations, even in the explanations of Madhava Sampradaya, Krishna's tu Bhagavan Swayam doesn't mean Krishna here. What they say, oh, Krishna means from the verbal root karsh, which means to attract, and that basically means Mahavishnu, who attracts everyone within his body at the pralaya. So that's their interpretation. They say, yes, who is Bhagavan Swayam? Swayam Bhagavan is Mahavishnu, who is in whose body everyone is entering at the pralaya. That's how they explain this verse. But actually, this is a beautiful grammatical, logical, and philosophical explanation, which is the foundation of our whole philosophy. First of all, Srila Jiva Goswami says that, look, in the very beginning of Srimad Bhagavatam, where the author of Srimad Bhagavatam wants to explain the idea of the book, he gives this very important chapter. The book is about Bhagavan. Who is Bhagavan? That's the question. This is Bhagavad Purana. The name of Bhagavan is not mentioned there because Vyasadeva wants to say, yes, I wrote about Matsya, I wrote about Kurma, I wrote about other incarnations, I gave different books, I even wrote Vishnu Purana. Now I want to explain who is Bhagavan. So Bhagavan is different, and yes, in the book himself he describes Narasimha and Matsya and this and that. But Jiva Goswami says, look, this is the beginning, this is the very beginning of the book, which is called Bhagavata Purana. In the very beginning there is a very important chapter, key chapter, which explains different avatars of Bhagavan. In the very beginning of this chapter, specifically it is said that Bhagavan, Jagrihe, accepted the form of Purush. And Purush means Narayana. So already in the very first verse of this particular third chapter of the first canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, Sutta Goswami or Srila Vyasadeva, the composer of it, says there is Bhagavan, a Bhagavan produced Narayan. Bhagavan produced Purusha, first form of Purusha, who is with all his colors laid down on the ocean of Karandaka ocean. So he mentions that Bhagavan produced Purusha, and then he starts mentioning different avatars, beginning from Kumara's 22 different avatars. He says they're all coming from Purusha. Purusha is coming from Bhagavan. And then he says, Ete chamsha kalah pumsah, Krishna's tu Bhagavan Swayam. All these avatars which I mentioned, they are just amshas and colors, they are different parts and parcels, but Krishna is Bhagavan Swayam. This Bhagavan, who I mentioned in the beginning, who produced Purusha. So this Bhagavan who produced Purusha, from which all the avatars came, and I mentioned Krishna among them, but actually Krishna is the Bhagavan, Swayam Bhagavan, who produced Purusha and all other avatars. And then there he employs this logic of Anubhav and Vidya. He said that Krishna is an Anubhav, he is the subject, because he has already been mentioned among these 22 avatars. He's Anubhav, we already know, we already heard about Krishna. And now he's adding something new, some new information about Krishna. And he says, yeah, by the way, this little boy who is playing flute in Vrindavan, he is, by the way, Swayam Bhagavan. He is the source of all the avatars, including Purushas, including Sri, including Mahavishnu. So this is the foundation of the whole thing, and of course Srila Jiva Goswami explains this elaborately in Krishna Sandarbha. The whole Krishna Sandarbha is the explanation of this verse, Krishna Stu Bhagavan Swayam. It's half of the verse. Etecham Shakalach Pumsach Krishna Stu Bhagavan Swayam. So, but here we see what Krishna Das, because I have to finish, what Krishna Das Kaviraj Goswami is doing, very interestingly, he wants to explain our philosophy. He wants to explain our philosophy in a very simple way, by giving the stories about Lord Chaitanya and by showing how Lord Chaitanya manifested different aspects of our philosophy, how he explained different aspects of our philosophy in his Lilas. And he's laying the philosophical foundation, Siddhantic foundation of it in this first beginning chapters, first chapter about gurus, how important it is to have guru as the living manifestation or personal manifestation of God in our life. And then he gives this chapter, and in this chapter he quotes the two most important verses. One is Vadanti tatatva vidas tatvam yajnanam advayam Rameti paramatmiti bhagavaniti shabhyate, that there is only one non-dual reality which manifests differently for different people. And then he quotes this particular verse, so basically referring to Krishna's Stu Bhagavan Swayam. This is the two pillars upon which our whole Siddhanta is based. If you know and if you're convinced about these two things, that different ways of understanding God or absolute reality ultimately are geared to understand Bhagavan, who is the highest manifestation of absolute truth. And this Bhagavan, the highest manifestation of this Bhagavan is Krishna. If you understand this, if you have no doubts about this, then you are Gaudiya Vaishnava and you can pass Bhakta program. No problem. And in the future you will be eligible for first initiation. But it basically disproves or refutes any other philosophy, including the philosophy of other sampradayas, without actually entering into debate but just taking these two statements from the Shastra, from the most authoritative Shastra, which is Srimad Bhagavatam, and elaborating on these two statements. That's the core, the basis, the foundation of Chaitanya philosophy, and therefore the foundation of Chaitanya Charitamrita. Srila Jiva Goswami explained the first verse in Bhagavad Sandarbha, huge book explaining Vadanti Tattva Vidas verse, and then in Krishna Sandarbha elaborately proves that Krishna is the supreme manifestation of all other forms of God, no matter what other people think. And of course, nobody reads Sandarbhas nowadays, but everyone reads Chaitanya Charitamrita. And in Chaitanya Charitamrita, Krishna Das Kaviraj Goswami says the same thing, but in a more indirect way, so to speak, and was giving the same philosophy, but in a more simple way. So the main point here is, again, Narayana is Anga, and all other manifestations of Vishnu with their majestic display of powers are just parts of Krishna, and Krishna is the supreme absolute truth. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna. Yes.
I try to English. Thank you so much, Guru Maharaj, for lesson. My questions is you give us a lot of arguments about that Krishna is the Purusha. But another question is what is the proof that the Lord Chaitanya is the same Krishna? And what happened with devotee who with the Lord Chaitanya? They go to Krishna Loka, or is another Loka, or is the Lord Chaitanya himself there?
So the proof that Lord Chaitanya is the same Krishna is Chaitanya Charitamrita. You should read it very carefully. It basically says that Lord Krishna is the highest manifestation of divinity. Why? Because he is the fullest manifestation of divinity, because he is supremely capable of entering all kinds of relationship, like Karandakashaya Vishnu, Garbhadakashaya Vishnu. We are not really related to him, and there is only a little way of relating to these manifestations of God. So Krishna, he is Akhila Rasamrita Murti. He is the manifestation of all the rasas. He can enter in any rasa. He can, allow you very close relationship, and that proves that he is the highest manifestation of God, because if God cannot enter into this relationship with his creation, who needs such God? We need love. We're designed by God to have loving relationship, and if God designs us to have loving relationship and to manifest our abilities completely only when we enter into loving relationship, and then he doesn't allow us to manifest this loving relationship in relationship with him, what kind of strange design it is. He's designing this whole creation to facilitate the exchange of love. So and then he is somewhere remote, and he is behind the curtains, and nobody knows what he is, and perhaps he is so ugly that therefore he doesn't show his face to anyone. Only the most devoted to him they can see and not be, all kinds of stuff is there. So Krishna is the fullest manifestation of it, of this loving relationship. And then somebody comes. So many different avatars came, so many different saints came, and nobody explained how Krishna is Akhila Rasamrita Murti. And then somebody comes, and somebody gives the full display of this explanation, and not only giving the explaining it elaborately, but showing what does it mean to enter into this amazing relationship with God. What does it mean to love Him? Somebody comes and reveals this truth which has not been revealed before, even though all the scriptures on the basis of which he is explaining this, and shows this, and you know, you should be a little suspicious, you know, why he is so, you know, capable of giving you this experience. Maybe he is so that's the idea, you know. The Supreme Personality of Godhead is the one who manifests all the relationship, and then, you know, only He can explain and give the same sort of relationship when He comes. That's our idea. That's what it is. Because, again, before Lord Chaitanya, nobody knew who Krishna is. He was just an avatar of Narayan. And he still remains an avatar of Narayan for many people. And then this revelation, which is so obvious, which is so clear in Srimad Bhagavatam, nobody revealed it, somebody reveals it, somebody shows it, and somebody gives the key to enter into the closest relationship with the absolute truth. So it must be something special. Isn't it logical?
Guru Maharaj was, I feel, more relevant for us is accepting that the idea that God is a person or not. So people from Abrahamic religions background, they get stuck there. But I'm wondering for Narayana Bhaktas and worshipping Narayan in this Aishwarya mode, are they not becoming pure devotees in one sense? And if yes, they are becoming pure, then why does Krishna remain a hidden truth for them?
See, purity has gradations. There is a purity and there is purity. They may become completely pure because the whole idea of Shuddha Bhakti is taken by Lord Chaitanya, according to Bhaktivinoda Thakur, from Ramanuja Sampradaya. This notion of Shuddha Bhakti, not just devotional service, but devotional service which is completely pure, which doesn't have any tinge of selfish or egoistic idea in relationship with God, is taken from Sri Sampradaya. So there is no doubt about it that they are pure. But within the, you know, like I usually give an example from my chemical background. You know, if you enter chemical laboratory, you have different substances there, and they're all marked as pure. You know, pure, but some marked as pure, some marked as chemically pure, some marked as absolutely pure, some marked. There are gradations of purity. After a certain level of contamination, it's pure because for all practical purposes, it's pure. There's only little traces of some little impurity. But then, you know, it's pure. It's, somebody says technically pure, so that's one. Then pure, then chemically pure. It means that you make a chemical analysis and you cannot find it. And then there will be super pure. So there is a purity there. There is absolute purity there. But you know, this purity is somewhat tinged with this mood of awe and reverence, because this doesn't allow so much intimacy in the relationship. So they're happy, they're satisfied. And actually we can see that if we take the songs of Alvars, we see in the songs of Alvars they describe very intimate relationship with God, with Narayan. But still, ultimately, after describing these exchanges of sentiments and emotions, they immediately come to their senses and say, "Oh, you are Narayan." So this distance again is being established. Like in Namalvar, sometimes he says very risky things about his relationship with God. But then he says, yeah, Narayan came to me this night and we had very intimate exchange, and then he mounted Garuda and flew away. So okay. Thank you very much. Srila Prabhupada ki jai.
Bhakti Maharaj ki jai.
Should I do each request for both of us?